do.
You do.
Yes, I'm keeping my water bottle. Ah, delicious.
Where's Ella? Oh, really? My security blanket.
Hello, happy Monday, and welcome to the Breakdown. I am Tara Setmayer. This is the Rick Wilson, and we are 1 week and a day away from Election Day. Hard to believe, but we are right around the corner, literally turning the corner into the election. And the turnout has been extraordinary. Those who joined us on Friday saw my little video about my experience early voting and how I got emotional doing it because I'm a big sap. But I joined the legions of voters who are out there voting. I think we're over 60 million at this point, which is more than the entire total of 2016. And at this rate, some are predicting we could reach 100 million early voters by Election Day, which is just extraordinary. So happy democracy so far. Tonight, our guests, we have author and Forbes editor Dan Alexander here to join us and talk a little bit about Trump's businesses. He wrote a really cool book called White House Inc., and we're going to talk to him about that. And we will be joined later on by Molly Jong-Fast, who is a Lincoln Project senior advisor and Rick's co-host of their podcast. What's your podcast called? The New Abnormal, right?
The New Abnormal.
Yes. It's you guys have a lot of fun. If you think Rick is loose on this show, listen to his podcast. So Molly Jong-Fast is joining us, and Lincoln Project co-founder Reed Galen will be with us a little bit later in the show. And as always, if you want to ask us a question, tweet us at #AskTheBreakdown and forward your questions to us, and we will try to get to as many as we can tonight. And we will be taking live callers later this evening. So head on over with the Zoom meeting ID, and hopefully we'll be able to get to you and pluck you out, and you get to ask a question live on air.
Oh. All right, we're going to back off the Red Bull supply for the editing crew.
That's amazing. See, they don't show us these on purpose so that you can get our natural reactions on air with the new seg. That's awesome. What's not awesome is Mark Meadows, the White House chief of staff. He sucks. Okay. Over the weekend on Sunday, he was on the Sunday shows. He was with my colleague over at CNN, Jake Tapper, on State of the Union. And as one of the anonymous Trump campaign advisors said, Mark Meadows shit the bed this weekend. Why? Because he basically admitted that we're, quote, not going to control the pandemic. Admitting defeat on this thing. Well, as my good friend Paul Begala said, the closing argument of the Trump campaign basically is, America, drop dead. Vote for me. It's insane, the ineptitude here. To try to spin this as some type of success, like, oh, well, I got the virus and now it's been defeated, so we're going to defeat it together and we're turning the corner. Rick, it's absurd. This is their closing message?
Tara, it is. Look, no one expects Mark Meadows, who is dumb as a bag of hair,
Clearly,
to really go out and articulate an effective set of talking points on any show. However, what this really represents is a much broader piece of intelligence about Trumpism. This is a man who does not care, and the guy who works for him does not care. They have just decided to come right out and say the quiet part loud, that they don't care to contain COVID. They're not going to try to manage this virus, that it's out of control, and they don't give a damn. The herd immunity idea has taken hold in the White House. They don't care what the body count is because of it. Look, this would be like FDR after Pearl Harbor saying, It's too hard. We're just not going to do it. It would be like Winston Churchill saying in 1939, yeah, screw it. Hitler's too much of a problem to handle. These guys in the White House are such, they're in such a vacuum that they don't understand that the consequences of that decision, of just saying screw it, as manifested out in these super spreader events around the country. We had a story tonight that popped right before air that in Minnesota there are 3 COVID clusters that they have identified because of Trump's super spreader event.
Yep.
This guy is now, a plague bearer, not a president. He's running around the country infecting people. And you can tell, not just because of the empirical evidence, but because they've come out now and said it to us.
Mhm.
We don't care. We're not going to contain the virus. And they're going to roll the dice. Oh, maybe someday we'll have a vaccine. Okay, that's working out well for us so far. As the death count is spiking everywhere, as the infection rate is spiking everywhere, as Trump supporting governors like Ron DeSantis are doing everything they can to bury the lead about the fact that reopening these states and having Trump come and stir the pot of COVID every couple of days is leading to disastrous consequences. This is the worst closing argument. I think Begala, Trump to U.S. drop dead.
Yeah.
It's a great argument.
Yeah.
Because it really tells you these people don't give a damn about this country. They don't give a damn about American citizens' lives. And they're out there aggressively spreading this disease. If this is their herd immunity plan, the first thing that's going to die from it is Donald Trump's campaign.
That's right. Another shout out to Paul Begala and his partner in crime, James Carville, who famously said it's the economy, stupid, right? During the Clinton campaign. Well, he's come back out and said it's the pandemic, stupid, which is so true, because the way that they're handling this pandemic will be the
100%.
death of their campaign, because they still had a chance. They still have a chance, but they had more of a chance before this whole COVID debacle. I was concerned because the economy was doing well, and people vote with their pocketbooks oftentimes. That supersedes a lot of other things. But this failure to protect American life they can't escape it, because we're seeing it every day. I mean,
it's unconscionable.
Right. And Trump is trying to claim that there's COVID fatigue and that it's the fake news, because everyone's now reporting, like you said, things are getting worse. We're seeing these clusters. We've got field hospitals being built now in Wisconsin. El Paso, Texas is in an absolute crisis right now because of COVID. They make up 20% of all the COVID cases in the entire state of Texas. They're trying to, Trump is out there tweeting that this is a fake story by the fake news media. It's absolutely insane. And I think the majority of the American people know this, and they've had enough of it. And so they care about, it's fair to say that they care more about what's happening and people dying with COVID than they do about some stupid laptop and Hunter Biden. Let's roll Meanwhile.
Meanwhile, from Trump's flailing campaign.
COVID, pandemic, COVID. And you know who got it? I did. Can you believe it?
Donald Trump isn't going to suddenly protect all of us. He can't even take the basic steps to protect himself.
We're also hearing about a second outbreak of the virus at the White House.
The vice president's chief of staff, Mark Short, outside political advisor, Marty Obst, and 3 additional aides.
Despite close contact, Pence is not in quarantine, so he headed to North Carolina.
COVID.
We're not going to control the pandemic. It is a contagious virus, just like the flu.
Yeah, but why not make efforts to contain it?
They are admitting defeat.
COVID.
You're a registered Republican. Correct. Obama, Trump, now Joe Biden.
His own words damn him more than anything else. and you can see the flop sweat that this guy is just reeking of flop sweat now, and he understands that 9 months ago he could have told the truth. 10 months ago he could have told the truth. Could have come out and said, "This is dangerous. We're going to have to do some serious shit in this country to mitigate this crisis. We're going to have to face this problem." But he was so afraid that the stock market would go down that he was willing to accept the deaths of over almost 250,000 Americans at this point, and quite certainly 250,000 Americans by the end of the year.
And the stock market went down today, right? Ironically, every time that he fucks up like this with COVID and with the death count goes up, the stock market plunges. It opened up 800 points down today because of this news over the weekend of them basically saying to hell with it and screw COVID. I mean, I don't know. Go ahead.
It is truly a moment, and it's a further display of just how dependent he is on one thing, the stock market, and it shows you how weak he is overall. But I think a lot of Americans are seeing a very weak man up close now. They're understanding it more and more. It's much more difficult for the bullshit tornado from Fox News and Facebook and Breitbart and all those things, and Steve Bannon's little, various propaganda outlets to rev people up and for them to believe, oh, it's all a lie by the big liberal media against Donald. It's all just, fake news. More and more they're seeing it. And I think one of the greatest things this week that we've seen is 60 Minutes. Trump thought he pulled the rug out from under 60 Minutes, and then they returned the favor.
Indeed, they did. I watched the 39 minutes of the unedited version that they put out early, thinking in some bizarre way that proved a point, that it made Trump look good. It made him look terrible. All he did was bitch and whine the entire time. He was belligerent from the very beginning. Leslie Stahl comported herself with class and professionalism as she has for the decades that she has been a journalist. And Trump just couldn't handle it. He literally just despises women. He cannot handle women who are smart and assertive. And it shows you that anytime the going gets a little tough, when shit starts to get real, he just runs. He runs on his little bone spurs out of there, takes his ball and goes home because he's a brat and he can't handle it. And it's just amazing. He went after Savannah Guthrie, Leslie Stahl, Kristen Welker. Who else? Just name it. He's constantly bitching about women who are too mean to him. How is that manly? I just don't see how those two things square. It's incongruent that he can't handle a couple of tough questions.
You can't square that circle, Tara.
I know.
There's no.
It's illogical.
There's. All I have to say, Donald, is we didn't run out of our 60 Minutes interview.
That's right. Oh, well, we all know he doesn't run anywhere. But anyway, he waddled out of the interview. I want to bring up something else that happened that,
as I call him, Pudgy the Centaur.
Yeah, exactly. Did you see the side shot at the debate? You were off on Friday, so we didn't really talk about that part.
Meme.
Oh my God. I think Lincoln Project tweeted out the poor podium. Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah.
But he's 239 pounds and in the best shape of his life, in better shape than, 30-year-old.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Something else that happened.
Perfect specimen.
Yeah, perfect specimen. Jeez. Something else happened a bit under the cover of all the other shitstorm stuff going on. Was this executive order that Trump signed concerning our civil service. And, civil service employees, they've been around for like 130 years. They're mainly nonpartisan. So the way the government works is you have the executive branch civil service employees, and only about 4,000 of them are called Schedule C political appointees. Say that 3 times fast. And these are people who, when a new administration comes in, they get to be appointed. The Presidential Personnel Office appoints them, and they go in to help usher in that administration's agenda. But the 2.1 million other workers that help the federal government run in the cabinet agencies are civil servants who are nonpartisan. They're there. They're the nuts and bolts, the glue that makes the government work. What has Donald Trump done now? So this has been like a pet project for conservatives for years because they complain there's too many government bureaucrats and you can't fire them when they're incompetent. There's an argument to be made for that. But what Donald Trump has done is he's created this new category now called the Schedule F, where the cabinet agencies can pick out which jobs are now moved into this category and they no longer have the same protections that civil servants used to have, where unions and things like that protect them from being fired for political reasons. That's now allegedly gone under this executive order. And obviously, people are looking at this. This is a way for Trump to do this loyalty test and to clean out all the people in the deep state that he claims are there. This has been in the works for years. And it finally now has come to fruition 2 weeks before the election. And it's just another example of his paranoia, of him destroying institutions. And you've got some 30-year-old, former quarterback, this Johnny McAtee that he brought back in, that's running around disrupting cabinet agencies because they're asking people to do this sweep and see who's loyal and who isn't. And now we find out that the president, as part of this, if he wins again, he wants to get rid of the CIA director, the Department of Defense secretary, and the FBI director because they have not been sufficiently loyal. That should scare the shit out of everyone because that basically means that Donald Trump wants to completely politicize our entire federal government to be all serfs, to bow down in fealty to Donald Trump. And that's not democracy, folks. That's authoritarianism.
It's also this obsession with incompetence and with inexperience that they love. They believe that loyalty is the only thing that matters, that loyalty to Trump is the only thing that matters. And so, as Tom Nichols says, there's been a death of expertise in this country.
Yes.
You've had all these people who are skeptical of smart people, and the Trump world contains that completely. So you end up with, the rule that Steve Jobs used to say, they used to ask him, how is Apple such a great management culture? How's it such a great company? And it was, A's hire B's, and B's hire C's, and C's hire D's. Well, in Trump world, there are no A's, there are no B's, there are no C's, and the D's hire people who are drunk behind the bus station, and they drag them in there because they say, I love Mr. Trump. And you end up getting people who are not competent to manage a Waffle House, much less run an agency of government or be participants in any kind of significant policy questions. So you had guys like Michael Caputo, who is, I think the clinical term is bug fucking sane, at HHS hiding, and the guy's never done anything except work for Trump and for Putin. Right. I kid you not, like literally worked for Putin. He's never done anything in his life except be a toady for these authoritarians, and he's over there trying to hide the COVID data. But that iterates out across the government, and what Trump is trying to ensure right now is that he's going to have a class of people in government that are loyal to him forever, and it is absolutely unacceptable. And I can tell you, as a former Schedule C employee, as a young man, as an appointee back in the dawn of time, I can tell you, it was a great honor, and we took it seriously to work in government as servants of the people. These guys are a bunch of goddamn skells that I would not trust to park a car.
Amen.
Other than that, and
to put an exclamation point on that, even some people who are Republicans that were appointed by Trump said, I can't do this anymore either. Ronald Sanders, who was a key advisor on the Key Advisory Council civil service appointee, he said, I'm out of here. I can't in good conscience continue to serve under these conditions because of how absurd this is. And, more power to him. At least he had the balls to do it. A lot of other people have not. But all the adults in the room are they've either quit or they're about to get fired if Donald Trump wins a second term, which should be enough right there for people not to vote for him. Do we want an entire government full of Michael freaking Caputos? God help, and Rudy Giuliani's? Jesus, where will we end up after that? My God. Or maybe we'll have other people in China,
Tara,
right?
We've been hearing a lot about Donald Trump, some of his closing arguments. And the last few days, he's been big on China again. and he's obsessing about it again. And I think he's obsessing about it in part because we discovered he's paid $188,000 in taxes in China in 2017, vice $750 in America.
It was a
but we've
filing
got a
fee,
new
Rick.
LP rapid response piece on that one.
I said it was a filing fee. It was a filing fee, Rick. Come on.
A filing fee.
Yeah, that's what Trump said during the debate. Oh, I think it was a filing fee. Sure it was.
All right, let's roll that next piece.
John is great, and she is a great gentleman. He's now president for life. President for life? No, he's great. Hey, look, he was able to do that. I think it's great. Maybe we'll have to give that a shot someday.
Are you still satisfied with how President Xi is handling the coronavirus?
I think President Xi is working very hard. As you know, I spoke with him recently. He's working really hard.
Oh yeah, President Xi, he's doing a great job. Now we know why he's been so complimentary.
President for life.
Yeah, he likes that idea. We all know Donald Trump doesn't kid. And he's been freaking trying to do business in China, including while he was still president, now we know, thanks to the intrepid reporting of the New York Times. But there's also someone else who has done some great reporting on Donald Trump and his business exploits, and that is our next guest. I'm pleased to bring in Dan Alexander joining us. Where is Dan? We have another stag. President for life. That's what he wants. Joining us tonight is Dan Alexander. He's a senior editor at Forbes magazine and the author of the new book, White House Inc., How Donald Trump Turned the Presidency into a Business. Dan, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, and thank you for the trumpets.
We had to give you a proper introduction here.
I know. That was quite nice.
So, Dan, you have led a lot of coverage of Donald Trump's finances, and twice a year you're responsible for putting together the magazine's estimate of Trump's net worth. How broke is he really?
No, he's not broke. I'm going to disappoint you. He's actually quite rich, but he does have a lot of debt. You know, when we go through and we count up all of his assets and all of his debt twice a year, and it takes, probably 3 or 4 weeks each time that we do it. And the file is over 100 pages long, and we call up more than 75 different experts in all the industries in which he plays, and you figure out what each of the assets are worth, and you tally all those up. You get $3.66 billion, and then you go through and you count up all the debt. You get $1.1 billion, and from there, calculating net worth is just a subtraction problem, and you get to $2.5 billion.
So he is, in fact, a billionaire, much to the chagrin of many of us who think that that's a bunch of BS. And that's been a question over the years. And he's sued people over it because, his whole self-worth is based off of his bottom line. And he also thinks, he's a great businessman. He touts all of his business bona fides. And in your book, you focus on his business from 2015 to now, pretty much. And throughout the book, you talk about various ways that his company is set up and different things that happen with Ivanka and how she gets paid. But what were some of the most alarming conflicts of interest that you saw while you were writing this book from 2015 to now? Because he was supposed to divest, but clearly he hasn't. So what were some of the most alarming conflicts and liabilities you saw?
Yeah, I think that while there's been a lot of focus on, for example, his hotel in Washington, D.C., or his golf clubs, one thing that people don't fully appreciate is that most of his profit, most of the money he actually makes, come from his commercial real estate portfolio. And then if you start digging in and seeing who's paying money in that portfolio and the amounts of money that they're paying, this is a lot more money than joining a membership fee at Mar-a-Lago or having a nice steak dinner at the DC hotel. These are millions upon millions of dollars that big corporations, in many cases foreign governments, are putting into the president's empire. And if you just break down sort of the overall statistics, it's pretty breathtaking. There's at least 4 foreign government entities that have been renting space in Trump buildings while he's served as president. At least 17 companies who've been under federal investigation while he has served as president and are paying him rent. At least 30 companies that are collecting federal government contracts. If you tally up all those contracts, it gets to more than $8 billion, who are also paying Trump rent. At least 35 companies who are lobbying the federal government while they're paying the president rent. And at least 20 of those are either lobbying the president personally or lobbying the White House. And so if you zoom in on those, that's where the most serious conflicts actually are.
Drain the swamp.
No one had tried bringing $1 billion business with them into the White House before this. And so we didn't really understand what that was going to look like, what that was going to mean. And it's amazing that it's taken us so long to figure out where all of these conflicts are and all the tentacles reach into. And frankly, we're still figuring it out. He's going to get into his second election without having to answer serious questions about his business. And if he gets elected to a second term, there's still going to be plenty of investigative bombshells coming out about his business in those next 4 years.
Well, Dan, I'm curious. I wrote in my first book, I had a conversation with a hedge fund guy who said to me one time, because I went to him in 2015, worried that Trump was going to be able to put billions of dollars of his own money into his campaign. And I said, I'm worried Trump will dump $1 billion in there. The guy, and he leans back in his chair and he goes, Rick, wait a minute. He goes, Trump's not a billionaire. He goes, I'm a billionaire. I'm a real billionaire. Trump is a clown living on credit. And I think that's one of the things that Americans have sort of been surprised by. Like, why is this supposedly very wealthy guy so stacked deep in debt? And I think that it is one of those things we're going to have to peel back very slowly over time, especially once he's no longer protected by, a failings of lawyers from the White House and the Justice Department and everything else. As once he's out of office, I think he's going to have a much more difficult time pretending and playing the same game that he once played. Do you think that's right?
Well, I think that actually, from a legal perspective, he's going to be in more trouble. But from a business perspective, I actually think if he loses, he's going to be better off. It's going to give him some more flexibility. But back to the point about him potentially putting $1 billion in his campaign or whatever, he's just not that liquid. He doesn't have that much cash. You can be really rich, but still not have a lot of cash. We estimate that he's got about $160 million of cash in his portfolio. Now, the New York Times just reported that he also has a potential $100 million plus tax liability hanging over his head. And he was talking about last month how he might just throw in $100 million into the campaign just to give it a little push here at the end. If you do the math on that, it's not that complicated. If you've got an $100 million tax liability hanging over your head, and you've only got $160 million in the bank, you're not putting $100 million of cash into your campaign. He put $66 million in the first time. He said that he was going to pay for it all himself, but of course he didn't. But one of the amazing things is here in this 2020 campaign, he hasn't put in a single cent. We've gone through and counted up all of the billionaires across the country who have put money into either the Biden campaign or the Trump campaign. And it's a huge chunk of the billionaires in the United States. And it's remarkable that one person missing from that chunk is one of the candidates himself.
Yeah, it's so Dan, let me ask you this question. When Donald Trump leaves this particular assignment that he's in right now, cursing us like a fell omen, he's going to probably go back out. We're hearing he's got a reality show in development already with Mark Burnett. what did he make off The Apprentice? Was that an actual profit center for this guy, or was that just sort of to sustain the brand and as an advertising basis for him?
Well, The Apprentice made the brand. I mean, he wasn't a brand before The Apprentice. You know, I mean, he was
Sure.
he was a real estate guy in New York that people in New York kind of laughed at and nobody else really knew about. You know, but The Apprentice did make him real money. And it wasn't just the money that was coming in from the fees from the show, but also then because he becomes famous, then people are willing to pay to put his name on various things, which that's about the easiest business you could possibly be in. You know, I mean, all you have to do is send a lawyer over to sign a contract and poof, your name's on Trump mattresses, Trump steaks, Trump Tower in Istanbul, you know, all this stuff. You don't have to do anything. You just sit back and collect money. And if you add up all that stuff, this alone was over $200 million. And then you add up all of the stuff from the licensing in addition to it, and you get to over $400 million. That's a huge cash injection for a guy who needs cash. You know, Donald Trump spends cash and he plows cash into his business, an unbelievable amount of cash into his business. And so that Apprentice money really came in handy for him.
But isn't it true also, Dan, that with Donald Trump owing this, well, personally guaranteeing $421 million, that a lot of that Apprentice money, they think he's blown it, right? The New York Times said that he, right? The New York Times said that he was cashing out stock options and has gone through this money. Is that true?
Yeah, no, he's blown a lot of it. I mean, it's not that hard to figure out. You know, he put into Doral, his golf resort in Miami. You know, he buys this thing for $150 million. And then he puts $213 million into it. So now you're $363 million into this asset. We now value that thing at $153 million. So that means that $210 million just totally disappeared. And if you look at the rest of his golf resorts, you know, look over in Europe. I mean, he's put, you know, more than $100 million into Turnberry, $70 million into Aberdeen, you know, almost the same amount into Doonbeg. You add up all these golf resorts that he's just blown a fortune on, and you get to $500 or $600 million. And then you start looking at, okay, well, what's the profitability of those assets? You know, if you invest $500 or $600 million, you're expecting to be making a lot of money. But the trouble is that nothing in Europe's making any money, and Doral's profits have really plunged. So net, that entire golf resort portfolio is about running even or losing money. That's a terrible return on investment for $500 or $600 million. So certainly he's blown a ton of money.
So Michael Cohen, his former personal attorney, said that this whole thing about running for president was really supposed to be a big marketing ploy to help his brand. And it seems as though it has had quite the opposite impact. Because, I mean, as much as he has tried and he's making money, you know, with the Secret Service when they stay at things and people that are staying, you know, with his kids traveling around, they're bringing money into these resorts. But it also seems as though he's losing money because his brand now is so tarnished. So is it true? Has the Trump presidency actually tanked the Trump brand?
Oh, there's no question about it. And it starts right from the very beginning. I mean, you know, there's a law that you can't have an uneven amount of airtime on non-news programs if you're running for president. So right off the bat, he's got to leave The Apprentice when he declares that he's going to run for president. And that's a lot of money, as we've already discussed. Then on the first day of his campaign, you know, he makes the famous comment where he says that, you know, Mexicans are rapists, and some of them, I assume, are good people too. And corporate America finds this so offensive that many of his partners immediately back out of licensing deals with him right off the very start. Then he becomes president and he makes a series of promises, most of which he has not kept, about how he's going to separate his business from his presidency. But one of those promises that he kind of kept was he said that he wasn't going to do any new foreign deals overseas. Now, he has done foreign deals overseas while he's been president, but he hasn't done sort of the big blockbuster, put your name on a foreign skyline sort of deals that could have brought him in a lot of money. So right there, that whole line of business is gone. Then you go to the assets that he still holds, and the ones that are the most consumer facing. So I'm talking about the resorts and the hotels, you know, things that people are booking night after night. You know, you're losing a lot of potential customers when you polarize your entire customer base. So after the 2016 election, you know, Trump National Doral, his golf resort in Miami, loses 100,000 booked room nights. This is a 643 room resort. So that's like 5 months of fully booked business that just disappears and you're not getting it back. And sure, he's going to get some extra business, you know, from the RNC coming in and hosting an event or whatever, but it's really, really hard to replace all of that revenue. And you can see it in the financials. I mean, the profitability at Doral, you know, falls in 2016, it's like $12 million in change. In 2017, it drops to $4.3 million. And one of his tax representatives goes in sworn testimony before local officials. They ask her why it's down so much, and she just flat out says it's because of the presidency. So there's no question that his brand has taken a hit, and that is costing him money. It's costing him potential growth, places where he can bring in easy cash, but even in his hard assets, it's costing him already. And you can just look at his net worth. I mean, you know, when he took office, we had him at, I think, $3.5 billion. Now we have him at $2.5 billion. That's $1 billion right there. If he had done what ethics experts said at the start and just sold everything, even if he paid the maximum possible capital gains tax at the federal and state level, and then he reinvested that money in the S&P 500, you know, the numbers change depending on what the market's doing. But the last time that I calculated it, he would be $800 million richer today if he had just listened to ethics experts, gotten rid of everything and stuck it in the S&P 500. But instead, he's in this group of assets.
Somebody must have told him that, Rick, because he was complaining at a rally today about how he loved his life and he could have gone back to it because it was just so good. So somebody must have reminded him how much money he's lost since he became president. No wonder he's hawking Doral for the G7 and everything else. Good Lord. Go ahead, Rick.
So, you know, you've talked about how unusual the structure of the Trump businesses is and how baroque and how complicated all these various interlocking LLCs and interlocking real estate trusts and real estate investment businesses are. Do you think the American people ever had a grip on just how shady some of this stuff is? I mean, the New York Times reporting on the family tax situation has been, you know, revelatory, I think. But you study this thing. Have you ever seen anybody with a parallel system to this, like anything as overtly, you know, opaque as this?
Well, look, I mean, real estate billionaires oftentimes hold their assets in a series of LLCs and all that. But the difference here is that there are certain investments that don't seem to make a whole lot of sense. I mean, you go back to those European golf investments that we were talking about. I mean, and you go back to Doral and you say, why is he plunging all of this money into these assets where he's just not going to get any money back? And it sort of leaves you scratching your head. And, you know, you could go a nefarious route and say, oh, there must be something super shady here. But the answer, frankly, might be simpler. I mean, this wouldn't be the first time that he's overspent on properties. This is his whole problem in Atlantic City. It wasn't that his casinos weren't bringing people in the door. It was that he spent too much money building them, and so he couldn't pay his interest on his loans. So the combination of the strange business, the sort of lack of strategy, but then also, you know, the importance of it. I mean, the fact that he's the president of the United States makes it, to me, I think it's the most fascinating business story of all time. And I think we're still watching it unfold.
It's pretty remarkable, Dan. And I think it's fair to say that Donald Trump is a shitty, terrible businessman. He has been his entire life. The only thing he's been good at is bullshitting people, which has allowed him to market those things and be the snake oil salesman that he is to earn that money. But anytime he's ever run anything, he's run it into the ground, including our own government. Dan Alexander, thank you so much. Be sure to check out his new book, White House Inc., and you can read his pieces in Forbes. All right, moving along.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, guys.
All right, let's bring in our other guests tonight. Let's bring in Reed Galen, and co-founder of the Lincoln Project and Lincoln Project Senior Advisor, and your buddy and co-host, Molly Jong-Fast, of your podcast, The New Abnormal. Rick, you have a disclaimer first.
I have a disclaimer first to remind you folks, Reed and I are sitting here together, elbow to elbow, but we are in a COVID bubble. We are tested all the damn time. We circulate only amongst our little circle of likewise tested people. We take COVID very seriously. With the minute we walk out of this room, we'll all be wearing masks again. The crew in this room is all wearing masks. We are, we're doing our best to avoid both catching and spreading COVID. We're unlike the president. We give a shit about people. So we want to just encourage you to also wear a mask, wash your hands, socially distance, practice, safe existence in this era of COVID, and don't attend Trump rallies. That's another point I didn't make previously.
Well, that's just generally bad.
Yeah. Rule number 1, no super spreader event attendance. Oh my gosh. So guys, not too much to discuss. There was a quiet weekend here in the final stretch of the campaign. Have you seen any good billboards lately? Maybe in Times Square?
Sometimes you feel like Elmer Fudd, but he actually catches bugs. You set the snare, but you don't expect that the rabbit's going to jump into it with both feet and both ears.
Right.
And that's just what they did. They just couldn't help themselves.
Our biggest reaction on Friday afternoon when they posted this Mark Kasowitz letter threatening to sue us was this phone call, and if we'd been in a room together, there would have been a lot of spit takes, like what? Did they what? Because we couldn't believe that these people took the bait and just ran with it. It was astounding. It wasn't like they bit the hook. It was like, here, let me put the hook in my mouth and very carefully set it for you.
Right.
I mean, you couldn't make this up.
The first thing I said,
they swam toward the fishing pole.
The first thing I said when I said, holy shit, they did it again. Thank you so much. Now the world will see what we put up, you idiots. I just, it's hard to imagine. They're so easy to poke. We know what they're how to press their buttons.
But of this weekend, I think, Molly Jong-Fast, your quote to Dana Rubenstein in the New York Times got to the heart of what the Kushner and Trump enterprise really cares about. Can you tell the audience what that was?
Well, I think why they got upset about that billboard was because it was like maybe they won't be able to go back to normal after this. And the idea here is that they really think they're going to go back to the Met Ball and re-enter polite society after killing thousands of New Yorkers. I like the way
why should they get to go back to normal life?
I like the way you have Ivanka with the Goya beans in the Goya bean pose. That was great.
That was a nice touch. The graphic shop did it.
But Rick,
can I just say that?
Go ahead, Reed.
No, I was just going to say when I first came in to say hello to Rick before you all went on the air, he was watching a CNN package in which they had a reporter doing a stand-up in front of the billboards, and they were saying, well, the Ivanka image has been altered. It has been altered from her displaying a can of Goya beans, and I'm trying to think about which is worse.
That's better.
That's better than this.
Way?
What is happening?
But the number isn't.
What is happening?
It doesn't tick up, right?
Well, they replace it now once a day. It looks like there's some technical hoo-ha with that.
Right, which always now, when people walk by and the Ivanka image has gone dark as they rework the numbers, there's now a great deal of concern that Ivanka has disappeared and there's some nefarious thing going on.
Right.
We will never, and of our own accord, take them down.
Yeah, just as two of the co-founders of this organization, just a message. As long as that contract is up to run that thing, nothing on God's green earth will make me take it down under any circumstances. That means you, Mark Kasowitz.
Will you put up more is the question.
He must have been. Yes, I think, yes.
Well, we're talking about the one on Staten Island.
Right.
Welcome
home, Jared and Ivanka.
Right. The most positive quote they got in that New York Times piece was from the deputy Republican Party chairman of Staten Island, who said, Jared and Ivanka are welcome here. And if you offered Jared and Ivanka two options, like you could be plunged into a molten volcano or forced to live on Staten Island,
they take the volcano every time. For sure.
Yeah, I'm sure the Wu-Tang Clan will welcome them in. Welcome to Shaolin, Javanka. Yeah, they'll. I know Joe.
So Molly, what's the reaction in? So Molly, what's the reaction in New York been about this? Has it caught on a little bit? I mean, I'm seeing the social media traffic.
So I told people about it, and one of my friends was like, "Oh, it actually is there." And I was like, yes, it's there. So I think people are into it. I mean, they're pretty unpopular. And that Vanity Fair article where Jared said, like, New Yorkers are going to die because Cuomo didn't hit the phones hard enough, they're pretty unpopular. So I think that is a winning thing. I think you should do more, and I don't think you should do them. I mean, it's funny to do it in Staten Island, but, like, no one has ever been to Staten Island. So I don't think people will see it.
Have you ever been to Staten Island, Molly?
I've been once.
Have you ever been to Staten Island?
Once.
Okay.
It's very, it's actually weirdly bucolic, but it's also just.
Did you need a passport to go there from your Upper East Side area? And could you get through the hordes of cannibal mutants on the streets that I'm told roam New York City, killing wantonly?
Yeah, it's very dangerous here. But actually, it takes a long time to get to Staten Island because the way it's set up, there's only one bridge. I mean, the thing about Staten Island is they don't want us either. It's a very kind of separate part of New York. And but I guess they want Jared and Ivanka, and man, they can have them.
According to Joe Borelli, who I used to do CNN with all the time back in the day when he was still a reasonable guy before he decided to take the wrong pill and go into Trump land. And there's two bridges to get to Staten Island, Molly. One from New York.
There are two.
And one from Jersey,
One from
my
Jersey.
side.
Right.
And I think I've been to Staten Island once in my entire life, driving from Jersey to get to Brooklyn, or the other way around, going from Brooklyn to get back to Jersey. But I have never actually physically stopped in Staten Island. But you know what? Listen, shout out to Staten Island. We're just giving you guys a lot of shit. But there's good, hardworking, blue-collar folks in Staten Island. It's just very different.
I've been to Staten Island many, many times, more than I can count, because I used to work for Mayor Borat.
Oh, that's right.
And so I've been to the Rock many times. It's a lovely place. But Jared and Ivanka would not do well there.
No, they wouldn't. No,
but as I said today on a call, I said I'm looking forward to Jared and Ivanka living in a 1,800 square foot condo on East Fresh Kills Terrace.
Shout out to Staten Island.
I just amuse myself with their suffering.
God.
Sorry.
Speaking of being a disaster.
On a more serious note, folks.
Go ahead.
Yeah, on a more serious note, folks. There were a lot of people who went to LincolnProject.us right after this thing, and they sent us emails like crazy and said, "Oh my God, Trump's lawyers are going to sue you. Aren't you terrified? Are you going to take them down?" We got a lot of social media traffic, a lot of Facebook traffic, a lot of on the website. I got phone calls, and as Reed said, the answer, to summarize it, simply was nuts. No way, no how. This is a strong and almost impenetrably strong First Amendment case.
Right.
Political speech is the most fundamentally protected speech of all. It is the speech that has the highest standard. They are also public officials, which adds to the icing on the cake. The other thing is, if there are 10 First Amendment lawyers in the country that are the top of the field, 7 of them work for us. And they are all going to come in.
And the other 3 volunteered.
Right. And they're going to come in and swing pipes at this guy. And they will never do this. They will never sue us because they know we'll take them to discovery. They know we'll win. And they know that the legal bills that are accrued will have to be paid by Trump. They will never do it. This is a hollow threat. Mark Kasowitz is completely blustering, and we're not afraid of it. We're not afraid of him. We're not afraid of Trump. Although Trump today on CNN was ranting and raving and wouldn't call us by name, because he's too much of too spineless.
He's a bad word.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it family friendly. He's too spineless to say our name.
It's because he can't grab us
these
by
evil, stupid rhinos who run ads against me.
Were we disgusting human beings? Or
I think we're disgusting
and
human
losers.
beings. Yeah.
And it's only Monday. Is it Monday?
It's Monday.
Monday.
Yeah, it's Monday.
Yeah, so it's all downhill from here.
Mission accomplished then with that, because that's exactly why we did what we did, was so that Trump would go on the rant, so that they'd waste time and resources coming after us and make themselves look like even more jackasses. And, thank you very much. On another note, speaking
Hey,
of
so Molly-
jackasses. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just want to. Hey, Molly, I have a question for you. Is this just like reflexive on their part to do something to threaten to sue? Is this just like who they are? As for years, Trump's done this and scared off like various girlfriends and strippers and everything else with a strong lawyer letter from Mark Kasowitz. Is this just what they do, or is it, or was it just like, or were they this stupid? I can't quite figure it out.
I mean, I think they do that with everything. And I think it's remember, the Kushner family owns all of these buildings right nearby. So for them, I think the idea that New York is theirs and then there's something sort of defaming them is very traumatic, which I think adds to how great it is. And it just, I have to say, those billboards just delight me. Like few things. I also think Ivanka and Jared live in this world where they think that their actions don't have consequences and that they're not going to be held to the same standard other people are. And so the idea that this could actually, people being dead is sort of, they haven't experienced that, right? That's sort of a theoretical for them. Whereas this is like, I don't think they realize that they could be equated with their actions. And so I think it's sort of fantastic. I'm a big fan of the billboards. Billboards are really good.
I mean, one thing Rick said about them being public officials, no one asked them to come to Washington, D.C. Literally, no one asked them to take roles as assistants to the president and be senior advisors in the West Wing. No one asked Jared Kushner to sit in a room and consign tens of thousands of Americans to their deaths because they lived in blue states instead of red states. None of us asked for this, right? Even if you elected Donald Trump, no one asked for his snot-nosed kids. And to your point, Molly, Trump has very rarely, if ever, faced the consequences for his actions. So the fact that his kids haven't, or Jared hasn't, he hasn't, I guess his dad went to the pokey for a couple of years, but they have very rarely faced, consequences for their actions from, what they've done here in the White House to all the things they do with, low income rentals, as we saw, on that Netflix special about dirty money. I mean, these are folks who have lived, a blessed life almost exclusively at the expense of the people who could afford it least. And so, when people say, oh, should you really do that? Is it too nice? I mean, these folks are responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans. It will get worse this winter. It will get worse before Donald Trump leaves office. And the idea that somehow they're off limits when they have decided to put themselves in the arena, as far as I'm concerned, is absolutely off the books.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
I think there's no reason. I mean, he's put all his kids are working on the campaign or surrogates, and and his kids are continually attacking Hunter Biden. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. They're adults. I mean, they're not even in their 40s.
Well, that's what we're here for, because the Biden campaign won't go after them the way that we have. And, meanwhile, Donald Trump and Don Jr. and all the rest of them, go after Hunter Biden and just project onto them everything that they're doing as far as illegal things. And the other point about Jared and Reed, you brought it up, the way that basically they're slumlords, the Kushners, and we see the way that they look at people of color. Just look based off of what Jared Kushner said this morning on Fox and Friends, which was so effing infuriating about how, we're supposed to all bow down to Donald Trump and Jared and all them because they let a couple people out of jail and they passed one criminal justice bill. Get the hell out of here. And he goes out there and he says that,
they didn't fund.
Right. Well, yeah. Who cares about that? Apparently Republicans don't anymore care about fiscal conservatism. But this whole idea that, well, we can't force people to be successful if they don't want to be, in order to be successful, Donald Trump put the policies there, but black folks are too stupid to take advantage of what we've done for them, is basically what he said, which is just absolutely infuriating. There are just no adults in the room.
Well, Tara, all he left out was the you people.
Yeah, you people. Well, Donald Trump says the blacks all the time, so There's that at least. But you know who is?
I suspect he says a little worse than that.
Well, according to Mary Trump, he says worse than that, and according to folks who've written books about Donald Trump, he has said worse than that. But we already know that he's a racist. It's clear. But this is the type of soft racism that they throw out there that reinforces these stereotypes of all these bigoted Americans who think, well, that's right. All these black people, they should be happy Donald Trump gave them jobs. It's like, no, A, no, he didn't. And B, what kind of shit is that? That is not how you're supposed to approach people in this country.
But Tara, but soft racism is still racism.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, the underlying current is you should be appreciative, little people, for all we've done for you.
Yeah, like Massive
right?
gave you clothes,
so
he gave you food. Why are you upset that you're still enslaved? That's what it's like.
I can't believe you still want shoes.
Right.
Yeah,
you want your freedom too?
The patronization of this is right. It's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
How smug Jared was on that Fox interview.
I know.
I mean, it blew me away. And I mean, Molly, do you think he gets it at all? But do you think he understands at all like the disconnect between that combination of like Ku Klux McKinsey and whatever the hell he is?
I don't understand how the kids are all so young and so racist. And they are like, I think for people in that generation to be so racist is unusual, or at least in that sort of outward way. I was surprised. I feel like you could their policies are racist, but I was surprised at how, they're all terrible. The great joke of all of those Trump kids is they're terrible surrogates, right? One is worse than the next. Right. Eric saying Democrats aren't even people, that Biden is going to pack the courts with 26 justices. They're not good surrogates. And we know they're not good surrogates because after they go on, we spend more time talking about like their gaffes than any of the talking points. So I think the fact that Trump keeps putting them on is kind of a testament to his sort of thick-headedness.
I'm not
Well,
surprised.
I think it also is a testament that literally no one else will serve as a surrogate for him.
Right.
Other than blood relations.
And frankly, I'm not surprised that they have the attitudes that they have. They grew up around bigots there for generations. And frankly, when people are, have that kind of money and live in those circles, they look down their nose at anyone who doesn't have that kind of money or who's in their circles. Even though people are laughing at them, they do it usually at the expense of who they believe is lesser than in society. Hello, Donald Trump was sued for racial discrimination in housing in the 1970s. That was his first front page cover. So I'm not surprised that his kids are a bunch of, stereotypical bigots too. I think we have an asset, Rick.
Yeah.
Yes.
As Molly pointed out, they're terrible. As Molly pointed out, they're terrible surrogates, and they range in terrible from like Tiffany is just kind of cringe. Don Jr. is increasingly showing signs of a more than passing acquaintance with Bolivian marching powder. But the inside the campaign itself, it's getting harder and harder to find anyone except Jason Miller who will go on TV to defend this thing.
Well,
so we've got a spot for you folks called Rats.
The rats are leaving the sinking ship, Donald. Bill Stepien and Jason Miller know it's over. Even Jared knows. And you know what they're doing? Spinning to make themselves look good, saying it's all your fault.
That's when
blaming you. Calling your ad strategy half-assed.
Greatest nation ever to exist.
Too small to move the needle.
They're not small, are they? I never heard that one before.
Spending the last of your donations. There's no strategy.
FEMA allocated.
They've blown it.
What happened? Was there money that just disappeared?
Nothing's working. You're losing.
Could you imagine if I lose? What am I going to do?
And they're laughing all the way to the bank.
Yes, a lot of the money disappeared on private jets, on paying the kids, on all kinds of other things because Donald Trump is a terrible businessman. But you know who's not a terrible person? You know whose campaign doesn't have a bunch of rats that are bilking the American people and the campaign and people's donations? It's Joe Biden. He's the adult in the race. And Lincoln Project has put out a beautiful ad about Biden's moment. Let's run this ad. What a contrast.
America is hurting. There's a sickness in the land, more than just a virus that could have been controlled long ago. Our faith is being tested. Our faith in each other, and the goodness of America. This is Joe Biden's moment. What his life prepared him for. Not an easy life, but being an American isn't about what's easy. It's about never giving up. He came from a family on hard times, overcame a crushing disability, endured the worst loss a man can imagine, and he never gave up. Joe Biden kept the faith that love is stronger than hate, that kindness is stronger than anger.
As I look across America today, hope seems elusive.
Today, it's not easy in America. Maybe it's destiny.
My answer is this.
Maybe a higher power.
You and I are part of a covenant.
But once again, the right leader is here to bring us together.
If we do our part.
This is Joe Biden's moment.
If we stand together.
This is our moment.
Then the divisions of our time will give way.
This is America.
To the dreams of a brighter, better future. We can be what we are at our best. The United States of America.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Well done, gentlemen. Well done. That's the America I choose, which is what I tweeted out today. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah. I mean, for all of the, we get most of the attention for, the hard-hitting stuff we do.
Sure.
But I don't think that our team gets nearly enough credit for the aspirational and I think truly evocative stuff that we've, the last 2 or 3 weeks have been just truly phenomenal as far as what the team has done. And they don't get nearly enough credit for the work they do.
And when this is over, a lot of our editors are going to be a lot more famous than they are right now.
Right.
We've kept them on the down low for their own security and their own safety. But we have a team of folks who can do everything from that elevated aspirational stuff down to what you'll see tomorrow, basically a version of the honey badger. So we go from the full spectrum. And Reed's exactly right. We're just honored with these people. We have I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if this thing we just got tonight comes through, I'm gonna put that in the holy shit category.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's what
most days, even a week out, are pretty good here.
Yeah, most days are pretty good here lately.
Oh, that's what makes us so deadly. We're well-rounded. We're a well-rounded weapon.
We're tired, and we're grainy around the edges sometimes, but we are having, this is what they call being a happy warrior, and we know we're in the right fight every day, and the support of everybody and the folks watching. Except for the White House, except for the campaign Oppo shop that watches this every night.
Yeah.
Hi, War Room.
Hi, guys.
Yeah.
Hi, War Room.
You're losing.
You're losing. I'd get that resume ready, and in the block for 1990 or 2019 and 2000, what I would put is something like ran an international drug ring,
right.
or
anything other than what you did.
Illegal animal artifact smuggler. Anything's better than the Trump campaign.
Right now, the poor kid who sits at the back of the war room and sort of manages the interns just threw his coffee at like 16 different flat screen televisions.
Oh my God! All right, let's bring in our first caller, Harrison from New York. Welcome to the Lincoln Project.
Thank you, guys. How's it going?
We're having fun.
Great.
Good, Harrison. How you doing tonight, bud?
Not bad. I have a question for you guys, and I also have a story about Don Jr.
I'll start with the story.
Tell it.
Great.
So, like you said, I'm from New York. I have a family member who, at the beginning of the year before the pandemic, was on a flight from DC back to New York, and he was on a plane with Don Jr. and Kimberly. And he's getting on the plane, coming down the aisle, and Don Jr. is sitting there with Kimberly, and they're hand feeding each other some kind of snack in the middle of the plane. Just hand feeding each other, like the most bizarre thing.
Ugh.
So the two of them definitely have some kind of
Thank you, Harrison.
weird kink going on there.
Well,
Now I will never sleep again, Harrison.
Or eat, maybe.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that vision of hell.
No problem. So my question, I just wanted to ask about people who are like, how do you talk to people who aren't really informed? Like, I have a friend who's pretty much apolitical, but he sort of gets sucked into sort of like the pro-Trump websites like Gateway Pundit, and he sends me things as sort of like a gotcha moment to see what I have to say about it. So I'm sort of worried that people like him, if let's say Trump wins and it's close, people like him who aren't really informed, don't really know exactly what's going on, are going to get tricked by websites like Gateway Pundit or RT. So I'm just wondering, how do you talk to people like that who don't really have like the same kind of awareness that people like us do about what's going on?
That's actually a terrific question. Reed, you want to pop that?
Well, I would say that, anytime you can look, if you tell them that's stupid and what are you thinking, then they're just going to shut you down, right? That's
right.
just like in any conversation. If you think someone is treating you like you're stupid, then you're not going to want to talk to them very much. And so I would say, what about this do you think is true? I mean, if I told you that, as we saw that 25% of the country believes that Joe Biden is, part of a George Soros, child sex ring run out of pizzerias, like, that's crazy, first. But second, how many people believe it is scary. And so I think you just have to, sometimes it's just a one-on-one conversation. Tell me why it is you believe these things. Tell me what it is that you're looking for in these things. Tell me why it is that you read this instead of, whatever a mainstream, newspaper might be. It doesn't have to be the Times. I mean, if you live in New York, it'd be the Post, the Daily News, any of them, right? And so, maybe not the Post.
Maybe not the Post.
So I think it's probably a one-on-one conversation. I would say that, I'll be honest with you, Harrison, I am so far down the rabbit trail now, it would be hard for me to probably have that conversation. I'm totally honest with you.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot more of us, especially at this point, with all we've been through. It's basically, get the fuck out of here. But we know it's important, and we understand that it's an important question, and it's one of those things that you deserve a lot of credit for wanting to try to engage your friends.
Yeah, I do say that. Yeah,
who are in the vortex of Trumpism. Let's go to our next caller.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, man.
It's hard. It's so hard. Because some of those people
Rebecca
at that
from
point
New
is just
Jersey.
too much. Oh, Jersey. We have a Jersey person.
We're just missing Connecticut now.
Right.
Let's do a tweet first before we go to Jersey.
All right, we'll do a tweet. Pull a tweet.
Rick, it's for you. Read it.
So discussing the Senate had time for a Sunday session to vote on ACB nomination. To make matters worse, she's being sworn in as we're having tonight's LPTV show. Yet again, no mask. What the F is going on? Please discuss. Guys, the bad news is Mitch McConnell always had the votes.
Right.
There was never going to be a hero. There was never going to be somebody who broke from the pack that they didn't already anticipate. They had no expectation that there was ever going to be any meaningful opposition. And there wasn't. And the reason there wasn't is when something cannot be done in politics, when it's an impossible task, you have to focus on the art of the possible. If we had devoted every resource we had at LP and then raised another $100 million on top of it, you know what would happen tonight with Amy Coney Barrett? She'd still be sworn in because Mitch McConnell doesn't give a shit. That's how it was going to always be. That's not what we wanted. That's not what we thought was a great idea. That's not what we thought was the right process for the country or the right choice. But it was an inevitable process that Mitch McConnell had control over. Now, because he's performed dark necromantic sacrifices, his hand turned black because of it. But I'm kidding, folks. It's not necromantic.
She's like that lady in the cave in Game of Thrones.
Jesus Christ, exactly. But that was unfortunately always going to be the outcome. This is the Alamo of the Republican Senate. This decision, I know it hurts for a lot of people. I know it hurts. But it was also a decision that they made with the knowledge it was almost inevitably going to cost them the Senate. How many seats would you say are out of the box because of it? I mean, I think Colorado, certainly.
Colorado, Arizona, Maine.
Arizona,
yeah, so 3.
Alaska, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, so it is a painful sacrifice, folks. I get how bad this is, but there was never anything anyone was going to do to stop Mitch McConnell on this. And again, you could buy every TV station and every ad on every TV station for a year. And you know what Mitch McConnell's reaction would be? Go fuck yourself. I'm doing this.
Well, and then you even take someone like Elisa Murkowski, who made this big thing about how she's going to vote against advancing the nomination. But once the nomination advanced, she voted to confirm.
Of course.
Because what happened in the midst of all that? Sarah Palin made some batshit crazy video outside her house, basically scaring the hell out of Lisa Murkowski that maybe she was going to get primaried in 2022.
Right.
And so, what she probably will anyway. But that's the kind of, courage that is lacking, right? I mean, Lisa Murkowski won on a write-in the last time she ran.
She should be completely confident in her position, but she's, rolls over on it.
That's why elections matter.
I mean,
because who controls the Senate controls these types of things, and they can change the rules. Harry Reid did it, which set this up back when Democrats had it, and then Republicans took it further, and now they apply changing the rules to Senate to SCOTUS confirmation. So all you need is 50+1. So control of the Senate matters. Elections.
Molly, I know you're a big, yeah. Hey, Molly, I know you're a big ACB fan. So, I mean, did you ever see any other outcome in this fight?
No, it was pre-decided. There was no other chance. I mean, it was grim though. I was surprised at how bad it felt. It really was. He's installed 3 very conservative justices, and he lost the popular vote by 2 million. I mean, it's kind of insane. Think of a world where that happens.
We're living in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Go ahead, Tara.
No, I'm just saying we're living in it. But go ahead, Reed, before we bring in our next caller, Rebecca from New Jersey.
Right. No, and I just wanted to say, I mean, that not only will it cost these senators politically, I mean, it's driven hundreds of millions of dollars worth of small dollar contributions to Joe Biden and to down ballot candidates across the country. And so not only will it probably cost them the Senate, Joe Biden and his campaign are outspending the Trump campaign 2-1. Democrats nationwide are outspending Republicans 2-1. And so it was probably a Pyrrhic victory at the end of the day. McConnell might have gotten his justice, but they're going to lose a lot for it. And I think that the one thing we should always remember is that good legislation will prevent Supreme Court justice or Supreme Court decisions.
I mean, you could have a problem. You could get to a place though where Amy ends up overturning Obamacare, and I mean, you could be haunted by her forever. I mean, at this point, it's a conservative court now.
Yep.
I mean, I think
it is. I mean, that again, it goes back to what I just said: is elections have consequences, and usually it's the right that's more motivated by the idea of Supreme Court justices. And this time, it backfired on them by pushing it through because, to Reed's point, it has galvanized the left in ways I don't think anybody ever anticipated because of what's on the docket coming up. People are paying attention to it on the left. Mm-hmm. So, but Mitch McConnell basically said, F you, because anything that can be changed now doesn't matter because these are lifetime appointments. So they'll be long dead and gone. And people like Amy Coney Barrett will still be on the court. However you feel about her or not, this is why elections matter. All right, next up, Rebecca from New Jersey.
Hi.
Welcome.
From the Superior State of New Jersey.
Hi, Rebecca.
Absolutely, indeed. Everyone knows that. I'm a very proud Jersey girl. Are you from North or South Jersey, Rebecca?
North Jersey.
Of course you are, because you're awesome. Where in North Jersey?
I'm from Pompton Plains or Pequannock, right by Wayne.
Yes.
I know you're from Paramus, and
right.
I went to Ramapo College, so I was a commuter, and I know Bergen County fairly well. So it's kind of
Love
like
it.
we're best friends already. So.
Of course. We always find each other. Go ahead. What's your question?
So my question is about the suburbs and about moderate Republicans who for years, in New Jersey, right now I actually live on Long Island, but who would, they would make negotiations and they would compromise and they would vote for, moderately, normal things. But now if Democrats are going to be replacing moderate Republicans, are they biting themselves? And is it a bad strategy, later on when all we're stuck with is like fucking Louis Gohmert and like, all those crazies on the right? Is it a bad strategy to, that we're now stuck with all these crazies?
Well,
as Schmidt likes to say, the Republican Party is a dwarf star. It is shrinking. It is getting more dense. It is getting hotter and more crazy. But that is, we've been asked this question a lot about, these quote unquote moderates. But the truth is that it doesn't matter if you're moderate or conservative or liberal or whatever it is. In our mind anyway, and I think I can speak for all of us, if you've stood silently by while this guy's done all the things he's done for the last 3 years, three and a half years,
you're a collaborator.
You're not a moderate. You're not a conservative. You're not a Republican. You're a Trumper. You're a Trumpist. You believe in Trumpism because you have not taken the time or courage to speak out against it. So from my perspective, was Susan Collins going to do anything heroic if she goes back to the Senate? No, none of these people are. And the Republicans left won't do a goddamn thing that's heroic either. They won't. In fact, they're already setting up to, they're already delaying stimulus so that they can say that next year they're fiscal conservatives and try and impose austerity on the country. I mean, these are people who are now bereft of any sort of principle. So as far as I'm concerned, they've lost the right to be senators.
Thanks for coming on, Rebecca. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work.
Stay strong. Let's go to one more. This pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? F America.
Oh my gosh.
Meg Donahue, at Donahue73. I salute you. Outstanding. Outstanding. Jeez.
I've seen Air Force One. I've never seen Marine One as the backdrop before.
That is interesting, isn't it?
That's a new
little advanced trickery going on there.
And a violation of the damn Hatch Act. But nobody seems to care anymore.
The plane always gets used.
Yeah.
They had to park it somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, I've used that trick, so I can't.
I think we have one more caller.
All right, let's go.
Or another tweet. Okay, any billboards featuring Don Jr. and Eric coming up? Abe, is there anything out there?
Sadly, I couldn't secure the rights to Disney's Pocahontas, so I could do my Don Jr. Pocahontas billboard. But disappointments abound in this world.
Oh my God!
We shall see. Look, Eric is largely irrelevant to us.
And to his dad too.
Yeah. Don Jr. Eric will never. Don will never love you. Never.
You'll always be Fredo number one.
You would be. Yeah. You'll be Fredo the lesser. But look, Don Jr. writes his own ads for us. I mean, every time Don Jr. does a video, it is comedy gold for us. So I don't know about billboards, but don't worry. No member of the Trump circle will remain unscathed in the coming days.
I mean, how could we really beat Don Jr., with his jammies and his covers pulled up, talking about the algorithms? I don't think we could beat it.
Some people thought that was actually they didn't believe that was real. They thought that it was a parody, and we're like, no, it's real. All right, we have one last live caller that we want to squeeze in before we end the night. I believe it is Sue from Grand Island, Nebraska. Hi, Sue.
Hi.
Hello,
Thank
Sue.
you.
Hi, Sue.
Hi. It's so good to be here with you guys. I am a blue person in a red state. And that's okay. I am really grateful for you guys and the work you're doing. Everything you say and do rings in my heart, red or blue. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Do you have a question for us?
Yeah, and it's probably a silly one, but one thing that is really concerning me is anybody watching the loading docks at the White House to see what is being moved out of the White House in terms of maybe national treasures, or even watching what is being put on computers and hard drives and what is being shredded. Is anybody watching that stuff? I'm kind of serious about that. You know, this would be a great opportunity for them to loot.
I could see Melania saying someday, bought this China on the eBay.
Look, I mean, you know, Sue, your question is a good one on multiple levels. One, it was funny, which is always good. Two, they probably are stealing the China and the silver. But three, I mean, you know, I actually thought about that the other day, that, you know, Jared's been given a top secret SCI clearance, which means the crown jewels of American intelligence. He could put it all on a thumb drive and no one would be able to tell him to stop.
Yep.
Yeah, and sell it to the Saudis.
And then he would be able to pay off 666 Park Avenue.
Right.
There it is.
Sue, thank you so much for that, because that's, you know, maybe we can, maybe that's an idea, that we have like a camera there and we can come up with what they're stealing, bringing out of the White House after they lose, as a parody. Or maybe, you know, My Cartoon President's going to do something like that on Showtime, because that show is hilarious. And that sounds like something they could write into their scripts. All right, guys, that's it for tonight's show. Thank you to all the callers. Thank you to Reed and Molly. Thank you for joining us. And a big thank you to Dan Alexander as well for joining us tonight. And before we go, of course, we have to give our call to action, our See Something, Say Something 2020 initiative to combat voter suppression or voter intimidation. If you see something, go to the website, and it allows voters to report any instances of voter suppression that they observe and when they observe it, which is always an important thing, because we want to make sure that that does not happen, because we see some shenanigans happening right now between now and Election Day. So csay2020.com. Rick?
Before we go, folks, tonight, I also want to encourage you to watch our sister show, Vote for America, hosted by our co-founder, Jennifer Horn. It is terrific. It's weekdays at 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific. You can follow it on our YouTube channel, Lincoln Project, the Lincoln Project YouTube channel. It's great fun. I want to thank our guests tonight, including you, Molly Jong-Fast, which I will see you on podcast land within seemingly a few hours. And I want to thank everybody else for coming in and Reed.
Thanks,
and Rick. We're gonna march off into the icy waste of our secret location.
Yeah. But as you guys do that, we will run what we always do, a little snippet from our podcast with Ron Steslow and Mike Madrid, talking about how COVID-19 has actually put Iowa in play. Thank you, guys. We'll see you tomorrow night. We have a big special guest tomorrow night. Stay tuned. Give you a hint.
And this was never envisioned when we started the Lincoln Project, right? We started with an entirely different set of assumptions. We never saw a pandemic coming. 3 or 4 months into this project, COVID-19 hits. The president makes it clear he's not going to take this seriously, and he pressures Republican governors to do the same. So what happens is it hits in certain parts of the country, particularly on the coasts. And then as we go into summer, it hits the Sun Belt very, very devastatingly. And what we see then in the data shop is we start to notice that there's a correlation between the increase in infection rates in counties and the decline in Donald Trump's support numbers politically. In other words, when this became real to people in their real lives and in their communities, it was no longer avoidable. It wasn't abstract. It wasn't like Trump saying something on TMZ or kids in cages. It was not something that they saw in the news or they could easily avoid. It was happening to everybody. Everybody was sheltering in place. You're worried about your grandparents. Are the kids going to be affected? What is this thing? We don't know. Every American was affected by this.
Good to see you. How are you?
Jong-Fast.
All right. Isaac, good to see you. How are you, man?
Nice to meet you, Mr. Vice President.
God love you. I just wanted to say hi. But I can't preach like you guys can.
America is a place for everyone. Those who chose this country, those who fought for it. Some Republicans, some Democrats, and most just somewhere in between. All looking for the same thing. Someone who understands their hopes, their dreams, their pain. To listen, to bring people together, to get up every day and work to make life better for families like yours. To look you in the eye, treat you with respect, and tell you the truth. To work just as hard for the people who voted for him as those who didn't. To be a president for all Americans.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Guess how painful that is.
So help you God.
I do.
Congratulations, Senator.
Thank you.
It sounds like a fairy tale. A man comes down from his tower and is crowned the most powerful man on earth. He gives to the rich and takes from the poor. He makes friends with our enemies and enemies of our friends. And then one day, a disease came upon the land. Fear not, he says, for it is a hoax and will not harm those who believe in me. As thousands and thousands suffer and die, he lies and says all will disappear with a sip of his magic potion. When the people cry for help, he attacks them with noxious gases and forces the children out of their homes and into the plague-filled air of a once proud and healthy nation. We're living in a story as grim as any ever told. And the lesson? Vote and send the man back to his tower for good.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Just watching my algorithms get crushed.
I guess I did something to piss off the Instagram gods, so hopefully you're seeing this stuff anyway. We'll do what we can. Talk to you soon.